Good afternoon, Sheriff Joe.
Good afternoon.
Thank you for being here with us today. We know that your first term is about to come to an end and you will run for re-election.
Correct.
So we would like to take the opportunity to learn about some of your future plans and, of course, your campaign, and so that our readers and our viewers have a better understanding of what's going on in the Metropolitan Police Department now. So first of all, would like to know that how many employees totally currently are there in the department?
Well, in a traditional police department, you have police officers and you have civilian employees.
Right.
So in Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department, it's a little bit different than most police departments. A lot of, when you go across the United States, you have a city police chief and you have a county sheriff. But back in 1973, we merged. So I'm the sheriff in charge of both the city and the county. So I have the jail as part of my responsibility. So I have 850 corrections officers. I have right around 400 civilian employees in the jail. And then on the policing side, I have 3,300 police officers and right around 1,000 civilian employees. So that's 4,300, I would say 5,600 employees.
Oh, wow. So how many of them are uniform
So when I say
officers?
police officers, we consider they're all encompassing.
All
So the
encompassing.
uniform is the same. So on the policing, driving in a patrol car, and detectives and all the other functions, it's total about 3,300.
So what's the ratio of officer to resident?
Ideal scenario is what you try to achieve is 2 officers per 1,000 permanent residents. So per 1,000 people that live here, 2 officers. Here locally, that's right where we're at. We're right at 2 officers per 1,000 residents. But that doesn't include the 42 million visitors that come here. You know, on a daily basis, we have an increase around 300,000 people a day. So, but that staffing doesn't include that. So it makes it difficult to be successful in law enforcement here in the Las Vegas Valley.
So apparently maybe, increasing the manpower probably
Yeah, I
will
mean,
be
that's always my number one
the
goal.
focus.
Besides fighting crime, your number one goal is to increase the number of police officers you can hire, because police officers make a difference, and it gives you the ability to be proactive versus reactive when you're in the law enforcement world.
Right. I mean, speaking of that, because the population of the Las Vegas Valley is increasing rapidly,
Right.
and chances are some criminals might be entering the valley probably from our neighboring states. So do you think that might impact the law enforcement in some ways?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we take that into consideration when we determine how many people to hire. And when we go to the city and the county government officials and plead for money to hire them, we always take that into consideration. But that's a natural budgeting process. So as the population increases, we request more police officers.
Yeah, since Las Vegas being the capital of international tourism, we all know that the safety on the Strip is extremely important. So when the October 1st shooting happened last year, which is already 6 months now.
Yeah.
So looking
Time
back,
flies, huh?
right, looking back today, it's hard to imagine your role. So could you please, share a little bit about your thought process and what's going on in terms of leading Metro, to handle such a major case, some of the challenges or difficulties that you're faced with?
Well, the most difficult and the easiest way to explain that is anytime you experience in any other industry a critical incident or a major incident, you can concentrate solely on that incident and find the solutions or the reasons why and all the after action and how you fix it and everything else, that one sole incident. But in law enforcement, we don't have that luxury. So an incident takes place, but what's occurring in the whole rest of the valley? Crime is still occurring. So we have to be able to, manage our resources to manage that incident, but yet not neglect the rest of the valley with all the other crime that's going on. So it's important for us, especially as me as the leader of the agency, to marshal those resources or control those resources or manage those resources, that we don't put all our eggs in one basket, per se. So that was the difficult part. The ability to do that, continue the investigation, do a good job on the investigation, but yet not forget about the people that live here and everything else that we do in law enforcement.
Well, because of the media attention, that when it comes to this such an incident, so what do you think of the role of the media when we approach this type of incident when it occurs, especially in terms of this case?
Well, that's a great question, and a lot of times it's adversarial between the media and law enforcement. But in this case, we couldn't take that. You would appreciate if we didn't have that stance. It would be an adversarial. What we want to do is embrace the media, because we needed the media to help us. Because the most important message is to get the message out to the people that there's no other bad actor, there's no other suspect that we're looking for. The situation is contained and controlled. And please help us ensure in calming the minds of the public, and that everything is okay and our safety is our priority. Their safety is our priority. And I think that's important for the media to do that. And it's important for the media not to continue to panic the community, instill fear into the community that nothing's being done or it's just chaos. And I think I did a good job in managing the media reference this event, because I asked them to help us. If you have any information that would help us with the investigation, please bring it forward, but also ensure that you're telling the public that Las Vegas is safe.
Well, we also have seen a larger and larger Chinese population in the Vegas Valley, and also the number of Chinese tourists too. So sometimes what happens is, because of the language barrier, they will have a delay when reporting a crime. So are you looking to hire more maybe bilingual officer or employees in that?
Yeah, I mean, that's always our
regards?
pursuit, especially in the police officer side, because it's very difficult to help people if you can't communicate. I mean, that's the crux of any business, especially in law enforcement, is the ability to communicate to your customers. And that's always, my goal is to always make the police department look like the community. So if there's 9% an Asian community, that's what we try to achieve when we're hiring police officers. We try to get 9%. If it's 40% or 30% Hispanic, that's what we try to achieve. And we're doing a pretty good job at Las Vegas Metro. The only race that you would describe as a race that we are not doing a good job in is the Hispanic Latino community. We do have a robust Asian police officer population. But what we're doing a little bit different now in Las Vegas, because there tends to be certain neighborhoods and certain areas of town that cultures seem to gravitate to, and especially like you look at the Spring Mountain Corridor or other areas of town. As far as the Asian community, we try to put officers, when we assign them, in those specific cultural areas. And before we didn't do that, because we didn't have officers the ability to do that, because we didn't have enough police officers. But now that we've had the luxury to hire, we try to achieve that. So we do concentrate on recruiting and hiring depending on cultures.
Yeah, in one way we are doing this interview on behalf of our readers and viewers, of course, in
And I
the
appreciate
Chinese community. And what happens is that there are more and more unsolved, of course, burglaries or robbery cases in this neighboring community, Spring Valley, Chinatown, Northwest, or Enterprise area.
Right.
So a lot of times we have people come to us ask for help too.
Yeah, because
so
of the
since you are
communication.
here, I know that a lot of us wanted to hear directly from you if you have any plans in the future, maybe in your re-elected term, in terms of maybe enhancing the security in the Asian community.
Oh yes, absolutely. Because remember when I talked about we didn't hire for years because of the economy. Now we've finally been given the ability to hire through a tax initiative and the powers to be in the city and the county government. So what we do is we try to determine our manpower needs area command by area command. And the enterprise area is expanding, Spring Valley area is expanding, Northwest is expanding. The other parts of town aren't. They're basically landlocked. So any new officers that we hire, they'll be in this part of town to help supplement the population growth. But specific to certain cultures, yes, I understand that. Usually when there's a communication problem, people don't report crime. And we absolutely want them to report it because we can't determine suspects without them reporting it or investigate or solve the crimes without developing patterns and understanding what is exactly occurring. So we do everything we can to ensure the communication's in place. And we even do that through volunteers. You have some volunteers here today, and they're influential in what we do. I mean, you can simply help us with communication issues by being a volunteer. You don't have to actually have to be a police officer for us to get over that hurdle of the communication issues. So.
Yeah, in our previous question, you said when you handled the October 1st shooting, you asked the media to help. Us, LVCN, and we are one of the major Chinese media here. So we would be honored to be able to offer any help in this area. So we just
Absolutely.
would like you to know in the future if you need us, we're here.
Thank you.
So you're welcome. So we also know that your first term is about to come to an end.
Correct.
So looking back, what are some of the accomplishments that you are most proud of, and maybe some of the areas you would like to see improved?
Well, that's fairly simple. What I'm most proud of is our ability to hire police officers. I think it's through my influence and my leadership that I was able to convince the city and the county that the need to hire more police officers. Because it's very frustrating in law enforcement if you don't have the ability to be proactive versus reactive. So that's been good. Under my tenure, we've hired over 600 police officers. And I anticipate in the next 2 fiscal years, we're going to hire 200, 300 more. So that's very important. And then the other piece is decentralization of the detectives. I pushed them out into area command. So it goes to what your question was. What are you doing in our areas that we're concerned with to help solve crime? Well, we're putting more detectives in specific geography to help investigate crime and solve them. Because before we had a flawed system. We changed it in order to be more timely and produce quality investigations. As a result, we used to only solve about 7% of all the total crime. Now we're right around 22%.
Wow.
So that's a big change for us. And it's in your neighborhood, it's in my neighborhood, and people get frustrated when they become victims and they don't think anything's being done about it. So that's what I'm most proud of, the ability to increase our solvability factors on crimes, create that blanket of safety and the reduction of crime, and the hiring of more police officers. So if you look at the nation as a whole, United States, there's been an increase in crime year over year for the last 3 years. And I'm proud to say in the last year in Las Vegas Valley, we decreased crime, so, which is good.
Wow, that's amazing. So your re-election campaign is going to begin soon, right?
Right.
So
Well, it's already started.
It's already started.
So
can you share with us a little bit of your maybe campaign strategies and your future outlooks?
Yeah, and there's 2 key components to that, and first and foremost is the continuance of the hiring of police officers, and to make sure that they're geography or the demographic of that, our police department looks like our community. We talked about that a little bit. Continue that recruiting, continue the hiring. Second is how we deal with mental health. There's no secret you've seen an increase in homelessness in the Las Vegas Valley, and a lot of those people have some kind of mental health issues.
Right.
But we don't really have the resources in this valley to deal with mental health. And when we don't have the resources or we don't know how to deal with it, people call 911. And the police come. And they ask the police to deal with it. And that's more of a social, local government issue than it is a police issue. But it's forced upon us. So my goal in my next campaign is to assist the city and the county and the state in developing and obtaining resources.
Right. I remember just this past weekend, there is a case related to this homeless person being found murdered in a tunnel of the drainage.
Yep.
Yeah. So, since you mentioned that, I mean, in the future, what kind of steps would you start to take to maybe have the mental health department, come into shape stronger?
Well, that's what my big push is, to make the people, the powers that be, to realize the lack of resources. So use my influence as the sheriff upon the governor to allocate state resources, and my influence as the sheriff upon the county commission to ensure that we have resources via county-controlled mental health or hospital health services, which would in particular be UMC. So imagine those individuals. A guy lives in a tunnel, he's homeless, he's causing a problem. A police officer comes and encounters him, doesn't really know what to do. We're in fear that this person might harm themselves or somebody else, so we take him to the county hospital to have evaluation. Well, the county hospital doesn't have beds or resources to evaluate them, so they just put them back out on the street.
Right.
It becomes a circular problem. The RJ, the local periodic here, the Review Journal did a big article on it over the weekend, and that's what we're dealing with. And so it's my goal to make people aware of that issue and try to convince them to provide resources to help us. So outside of that, say they don't, what am I going to do internally on the police department? Well, we have different teams that we stand up. So if we're dealing with the issues associated with the homeless, we have what we call the MORE team. It's a community team of people from the city, people from my police department, people from the county, and the local resources to help us with that. So they respond to those issues versus an individual police officer, and you call 911. He responds and he goes, well, what do I do? Do I take them to jail or do I have somebody to call? Well, through those MORE teams, they can call and then have people that know what resources we have or have the access to resources to respond. So that's what we're doing now. We just recently stood up some of these teams. We put some people towards it, and now we're going to see whether it's successful or not. Okay?
Well, lastly, we would like to thank you because we know that you've been in the police since the last 80s. So you have seen Vegas grown and,
I've been doing it for 30 years.
Right. So and you are being so approachable to us. We thank you for this opportunity.
All
Thank
right,
you for
thank you.
being us.
And just remind everybody, especially if they're locals, that the election is June 12th.
June 12th.
And it doesn't matter unless you get out and vote. Right? So
Right.
get out and vote.
Thank you.
Thank you.
想收看更多维加斯华文短片，请浏览新闻网 lvcnn.com。谢谢。